Jason was my son, and today is his birthday.
Where's Mr. Christie?
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I? Not after what happened.
Hello, the Dead Weather is here and ready to tackle my ranking of the Friday the 13th series. Put on your hockey mask, grab a drink, and let's take a stab at this list. I'll slash my way through it. Maybe dice in some thoughts. Okay, this is lame. Haha, what a cut up. Murder! Spanning decades, Friday the 13th is one of the most beloved horror movie franchises. Boasting an impressive 12 films, the series has no lack of carnage, blood, and fans. Here's my list of the stalking madman Jason Voorhees films. Number 12 on my list, 2009's Friday the 13th remake. Derek Mears does an admirable job of playing our machete-wielding madman, but the crammed-in story and paint-by-numbers cast leave a lot to be desired. This Michael Bay-produced cash grab follows a slightly better, if not just as unremarkable, Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. Director Marcus Nispel did both, and while we do have some inventive kills, the overall product lacks the cool, cheesy 80s vibe trying to retell the bullet points of the original 4 movies. It's not the worst remake in recent years. I'm looking at you on Nightmare on Elm Street. But it suffers from the same fate as most of the rest. An unimaginative retread lacking any suspense. There are some interesting kills, but a dumbed-down ending and lack of that sinister trademark score. This remake should have stayed dead. Number 11 is Freddy vs. Jason. Suffering from some of the same tropes the remake didn't learn from, after years in development, Freddy vs. Jason brought a whole lot of with some genuine movie making. Robert Englund does all he can as the dream killer bent on making a comeback on Elm Street. He awakens Jason and the stalk and slash begins. Working with a well enough self-contained script to explain how these two titans of terror face off, the final showdown feels more show than hell. A big missed opportunity not having Kane Hodder as Jason still stands out today. The movie ends with a wink and a nod, and while anything that contains Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger is always a good thing, this one just didn't hit the mark.
Welcome to my nightmare.
Number 10 is the aptly titled Jason X. The space setting actually works here, as does most of our alien clone friends. Kane Hodder kills it again, and the spaceship setting gives a nice break from the campsites. Containing one of the most unique kills in slasher history, Jason X has its mutated heart in the right place. The budget may have been too skimpy for what director Jim Isaac wanted to give us, but by the time Uber Jason arrives, you're having too much fun to care. A nice placeholder for the series just as it was about to shift, Jason X doesn't hit a grand slam, but it does wear its blue collar well enough to root for this cast of unlucky kids.
You gotta be kidding me.
Number 9 on my list is Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. A favorite of mine when I was younger and boasting one of the best slasher posters ever created, Part 8 doesn't age well. Forgetting the fact that the bait and switch is in full effect here as Jason merely visits a few locales more than take the city that never sleeps. Akin to a tourist who wants to see the sights, Part 8 gives us a large cast to see get their ghost. Unfortunately, the movie is mostly bloodless, leaving us feeling cheated compared to the earlier films. It does boast a fine villain with Peter Mark Richmond playing the chaperone to our group of graduates. This allows us to care a little bit, especially for our hero Rennie, as the film unfolds. And Kane Hodder once again gets high marks as we are introduced to the first glimpses of time-shifting Jason. The kills are very inventive for what we are allowed to see. The plot has a decent enough sub-thread with our hero having met Jason years before and coming face to face with him once again. The ending goes full stupid though in its last shot of Jason, but it mostly works. A lost moment to have Jason Voorhees audition for a role in Cats, but I digress.
Yo, man, it's cool. It's cool, man. It's cool.
Number 8 is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Boasting the second time in the series, the title has alluded to this being the final film. Part 9 takes things in a way different direction. After luring out and nuking our goalie friend, we find the shape-shifting, body-switching, Creighton Duke-obsessed Jason has a sister. Hey, look, the Necronomicon! I'm going to shave this guy for no reason. A Voorhees can only kill a Voorhees. Batshit crazy entry. Unlike Part 8, Jason Goes to Hell gets a bit better to me as time goes by. There are some sweet gore effects here, and the production is a step up. It looks well enough, and the actors are all game to tell the story. A bit uneven and severely missing the actual Jason to a fault, Part 9 gets a decent grade for trying something new. It does need to be mentioned that this is by far the worst looking Jason in the series, which I suppose is ironic since we barely see him anyways. It does set up the Freddy showdown with a nice twist ending. Jason Goes to Hell doesn't work for everyone. It barely works for me, but it sits a bit higher than it should for taking chances. Here's where it starts to get difficult. The next few films can be interchanged to a degree. The series was being churned out at a prolific pace. A few things here and there can be the difference in ranking. One of those factors is the supporting cast, and in a turn that seems even odd to me, Friday the 13th Part 3 lands at number 7. Officially the second day of Jason's slasher streak, so technically landing on Saturday the 14th, Part 3 is where the series hits its stride, giving us the infamous hockey mask and setting off the Jason craze for generations to come. Richard Broker does one of, if not the best portrayal of Jason, and Chris as our final girl plays it straight to the skull. Taking advantage of the 80s 3D craze, Part 3 throws everything it can at the camera, which hits as a fun night with the red and blue glasses on, but slows things down when watching it in traditional format. Thankfully, Jason is lean and mean here, boasting a very menacing tone anytime he is near. The film misses that mark during stretches as the plot involving our party-ready victims plays out. Larry Zerner as Shelley is a slasher miracle as our resident jokester of the crew. Filled with trying too hard woe and woe is me, can't get the girl, Shelley gives the audience a sympathetic character to root for. His eventual demise and birth of the iconic look give Shelley a top seat in the Friday the 13th Hall of Fame. The biker gang does feel tacked on to pad the running time and body count, but the barnyard setting, later used to a less effective but well enough resource in Halloween 5, does deliver in the climax as Jason meets his match courtesy of an axe to the skull. The final jump scene doesn't move the needle, but this film does give us the scariest ending in the entire series. I mean, come on, look at this. That's just fucking great stuff right there. This movie should be higher on the list, but for now, it's number 7.
Shouldn't have come back here so soon.
Don't let it get to you. Relax. Enjoy the weekend.
Rolling into number 6 is Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. The first red flag in the series, Part 5 decided that after killing Jason in the previous movie, a copycat killer was the best option to continue the series. That's right, no Jason. It worked so well for Halloween 3, so why not piss off your entire fan base? Putting aside the questionable motives and ending reveal, the story does bring us the continuation of Tommy Jarvis. The now grown-up Tommy the Jason Slayer is a not-so-well-adjusted man placed into the hands of another institution trying to help him through his mental dismay. Plagued by visions of Jason and a hair-pull anger management issue that would give Adam Sandler a run for his money, Tommy is once again haunted by the would-be Voorhees, bringing a very noticeable sleaze factor to the series. Part 5 has all the familiar benchmarks we come to expect. Setting the story at an institution brings the opportunity to add a different, non-standard set of victims to the mix. Everything plays out as expected in the end as Tommy once again stands face to face with his tormentor, only this time it's Melanie Kinnaman as Pam, who was there to save the day, bringing a tough, no-nonsense hero. Tom Morga does an excellent job as the real Jason here. This happens to be the first movie in the series I had ever seen, and his scenes silently standing with an axe staring back at Tommy still stand the test of time. Maybe the nostalgia has clouded my thoughts, but Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, is the last true scary entry in the series. And while the ending with Roy may not have been what fans wanted to see, up to that point it's Friday the 13th through and through.
Well, if that's the way you feel, forget it, Vic. Just forget it. But I think you're really out of line.
Number 5 is Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. Realizing the mistake of the ending of the previous film, Paramount Studios reversed course and brought back Jason in a big way. Hell, the title alone lets you know that this time we're really going to give you Jason Voorhees. Back again is Tommy Jarvis, this time a lot less nervous wreck and much more Clint Eastwood. An attempt by Tommy to quench his thirst for the true demise of Jason leads us to a cemetery and Jason's lightning bolt resurrection. Reminiscent of Frankenstein's monster, Jason is back as the undead zombie machine. Part 6 plays for laughs and comes off more thriller than slasher. Setting the tone are the new camp counselors as they embark on a new summer program. Our victims here are all likable and get a few moments to shine before they are eventually dispatched. C.J. Graham does very well as the first incarnation of back-to-life hockey head. Tom Matthews as Tommy plays headstrong to the T while eventually and literally drowning his fears in Jason once again. Jennifer Cook as Megan steals the show as the daughter of the not-so-tolerant Crystal Lake, Forest Green sheriff. She says more with her eyes alone than the remake cast did out loud in that entire movie. And that rebellious believability serves the story very well. It's a mostly bloodless affair, but with plenty of cool daytime scenes, a tongue-in-cheek meta wink to the fans, and the fact it's actually Jason Voorhees. The end result is many people's favorite of the series.
It's over. It's finally over. Jason's home.
Number 4 is the original Friday the 13th. Sold on a notion before the story was even written, Friday the 13th started the 80s marathon of cheap slasher fun. There were a few films before this, notably Halloween, Black Christmas, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that created the mold of slasher flicks. But Friday the 13th made it possible to achieve large profits on low ceilings that soon every studio was trying to recapture. Fortunately, the end result is an excellent murder mystery ghost story which very much earns its place in the annals of horror movie history. Brimming with the cast of likable characters and a score setting the tone for eerie dread and carnage, Friday the 13th proved to be a very lucky day. Adrienne King stars as Alice and is one of the world's best final girls. Betsy Palmer plays our killer perfectly as the mother hell-bent on revenge. Add in the exceptional special effects work led by Tom Savini, and there isn't much more to say about this classic. This one started it all, and for great reason.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
It's got a death curse.
Now we crack the top 3, and at number 3, this is where I expect to catch some shit. A less than favorable entry for many, a lukewarm reception for most, but high on my list is Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. The first attempt to tie the series into A Nightmare on Elm Street, but ultimately reworking the script to have Jason face off against the telekinetic force in Lar Park Lincoln's Tina, A New Blood changed the series forever with one brilliant casting choice, Kane Hodder. Not enough can be said about how this worked out perfectly, as our now undead villain was being crafted by a person who brought many of the mannerisms and mechanics most people expect when they think of Jason. Adding in the fact that Jason's look itself is spectacular, and you may very well have the perfect version of Mr. Voorhees, with his spine-showing battle-tested fatigues and one hell of an unmasking that to this day still scares the shit out of me. Terry Kaiser plays Dr. Cruz, the one who was supposed to help Tina with her traumatic childhood, but instead is there to serve his own greed. We have a great person to root against while hoping that Tina can make it out alive. Admittedly, the rest of the cast is a bit underwhelming, but seeing how that's the case in most of the series, I'm willing to give that a pass and base my ranking on other factors. Yes, the gore was completely cut out of this movie, but it still has a mean undertone. Kane brought a lot of that element to this flick. I probably shouldn't like this movie as much as I do, but watching a totally creepy Jason stalk around with a weed whacker is a vision I'll never get out of my head. The ending is dumb, but that can be said about most of the series. In between the standard plot lines lies a battle between good and evil in which good wins and evil just happen to look so badass and pissed off you forget who you're supposed to be rooting for in the first place. Despite his flaws, this is the definitive Jason we needed 7 movies into the arc, with what would be 5 more to go. If Part 6 hit the refresh button, A New Blood ran with the knife and won the race. Well, until Tina's dad showed up, but hey, what are you gonna do? Can't win them all. Number 2. And after much internal debate, and I'm still flinching on having Part 3 so damn low on my list, my second favorite in the series is Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Armed with the task of killing Jason, the return of SFX guru Tom Savini, and the most recognizable and rounded out cast in the series, Part 4 delivered the goods, stole them from you, delivered them again, and then punched you in the face just for fun. This movie ranks high for most fans, and with great reason. It's a scary, down and dirty bloodfest. Our first introduction of Tommy, played by Corey Feldman, gives us a glimpse into the life of a single mom raising her 2 kids as the house next door gets invaded by the party teens. Jason is ultimately and finally put to rest in an ending moment that goes down as one of, if not the coolest and bloodiest machete kills of all time. But once again, technically, this is Sunday the 15th, as this movie takes place directly after the events of Part 3. Crispin Glover does show up to look for the corkscrew and add credibility once again to this tale. It's a very well-made gem of a slasher movie that hits all the right notes. So here we are at number 1. And if you're keeping track at home, then you already know that my pick for favorite Friday the 13th movie in the series is Part 2.
I don't want to scare anyone, but I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason. His body was never recovered from the lake after he drowned. The girl who survived that night at Camp Blood, that Friday the 13th, she disappeared 2 months later.
Our first true Jason stalker takes the ideas of the first movie and tightens up the ship, adding another layer to the campfire ghost story, while proving that sometimes an old wives' tale is true, and sometimes that legend is real. Picking up a few years later, we see our original savior Alice trying to adjust to life after that murderous night. In a twist of fate, she is unceremoniously killed in revenge by Jason. We are then introduced to our new cast of fake blood donors, and away we go. Led by the immensely likable Amy Steele as Ginny, a set of new counselors are ready to open up the camp. The story plays out as expected, but being part 2, we haven't had the decades worth of viewing to skew the situation. Here, Jenny is studying child psychology, which works as a backdrop throughout the film. She is smart and assertive, yet playful, and can handle situations on her own. She muses throughout the film that if Jason were still alive, how all of his young, messed up life would have affected him today. This is a smart way to add layers to the story while we slash our way to the eventual showdown between the two.
Jason! It's all done, Jason. You've done your job well, and Mommy is pleased. That's a good boy. Now come to Mommy. Come on. Come on.
Jason himself is different here. Not yet the hockey mask wearing brute force we all know and love. Here, he's a backwoods man-child who wears a tied-up sack over his head. He runs, he grunts, and he fucking kills people. Using the folklore set up throughout the film, Ginny is able to trick Jason just long enough to put him down for the end credits. Sort of. I mean, these movies never really have a definitive end. Major props for the team, though, involved to have Alice back at Jason's shack as one of the bodies laid out at his mother's altar. It's a great nod and attention to detail this movie delivers on.
That's a good boy. Good Jason.
So there's my list of the Friday the 13th movies. Hopefully, one day soon we will get the 13th entry once the legal fiasco is settled, and maybe then I'll revisit this ranking with an update. In the meantime, I could go on and on about all the kills, Jason actors, final girls, and overall cast in much more detail. So look for more F13 rumblings in the future. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like and please subscribe to my channel. Till the next time, if the rain doesn't feel right and the sun casts a long shadow, it may just be a sign that the dead weather is here. Man, did I really have part 3 way down on the list? Seriously?
Who are you?
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.